Welcome back to the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS. Endurance Cup continues, and it is pre-qualifying that now signals us onto the circuit. It is a very blustery and sunny day, a perfect location and a perfect weather condition for the pre-qualifying session. I'm Jake Sanson, beside me John Watson. It's been a great day so far, lots of interesting things to gather from free practice, but now comes pre-qualifying.
Pre-qualifying, a precursor, one might say, to what the main event's going to be on Sunday afternoon. Temperatures, well, track temperature 10.7 Celsius. It's moved a little bit since this morning, but it's not exactly stellar. I mean, you're not going to get blisters in your tires driving down the pit lane, that's for sure. But what I hope we may well see in this session is what we didn't see in the session earlier in the morning, and that was a lot of teams and cars and drivers who, in my view, are totally out of position from where one would expect them to be. And some of those cars were WRT BMWs, didn't see them, the Porsches, the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche GT Racing. Ferrari, where were the Ferraris? Now, clearly a lot of people will have used that session, 1.5 hours with a minor break in it just to clear the track, to filter through their drivers, to go through the work schedule that they will have determined before the race or that session got underway.
So one of the things that is going to happen during pre-qualifying is there is basically a demo of the wave by, which is going to be an interesting format that's obviously been brought in for this year. Tell us a little bit about this, John.
Well, I think it's as confusing to the drivers as it is to me, but essentially one of the problems has been when there's been a full course yellow, then a safety car intervention, the safety car doesn't necessarily pick up the lead car, it just enters the track at the point when it's been declared a safety car circumstance. And it's now enabling drivers who are between the safety car, in a sense, and the race leader to let those cars filter through, be waved through by the safety car, and they then can do a lap and catch up to the tail of the field. And therefore the safety car will have the race leader. Now, that'll work for some people, it'll hurt other people, and it's also, it depends if you have, maybe you've gone into the pits at the time the safety car was declared. It is a test for the teams and the drivers, and of course what teams and drivers will be looking for is seeing where will we be able to take advantage of what might be an anticipated safety car, because it will go a full course yellow, then a safety car, and that's the decision that teams on the pit lane, on the pit wall, have got to make. And that's where teams can make a big difference, because this is not just all about the driver and the car, it's about the people behind those two elements, working on the pit lane, working in the garages, working on banks of computers to calculate where, if and or but, they may return to the circuit or they may gain or lose. But anyway, we're going to see a simulation of this to give teams an insight into how it's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important to get these things practiced and rehearsed before we get into racing, because obviously if people are unsure about how the procedure works going into the race, then that could cause problems. So it's only right that the simulation of that particular mode is given a proper opportunity.
The difficulty is you have to do it, oh, well, there's the safety car waiting. The difficulty is you have to do it in this pre-qualifying session, which is not the same as a race, because people aren't racing here. What they're doing is doing laps, coming in, changing. It's the nearest can be achieved prior to doing it, or doing it in a race proper. So it's an effort to give everybody an opportunity to get a heads up as to what may be safety cars sitting there at the pit lane exit. Now, whether they're going to do this at the earliest opportunity, or through a joker, as they may say, and do it in the heart of this 1.5 hour session, when people have got their heads down, actually doing some serious pre-race or pre-qualifying preparation.
So we are obviously now into pre-qualifying. For those who are new to the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS, for those who are not, unfortunately you have to bear with us while we repeat something that you already know about. But for those who are new to it, obviously you've got pre-practice and then you've got pre-qualifying. So what differentiates, John, pre-qualifying from pre-practice?
Effectively, if, let's say, Sunday was a disaster, total washout, so the heavens descend on Monza, and there's a possibility it will be wet.
I was just going to say, it might happen.
Therefore, the pre-qualifying would become effectively the grid for the race, which one would hope would take place later in the day when conditions have moderated and changed. So that is essentially what it is there to do, but at the same time it gives teams another 1.5 hours to go out and fine-tune and fettle and whatever they want to do, and give drivers of less experience more track time, give the teams that one would expect, the pro teams principally, time to get down to that very fine detail work that they know will make a difference between getting on the front or the second or the third rows of grid.
So for those who are basically taking that as read, it essentially means that for the first 60 minutes or so of the pre-qualifying, you're still doing another test session, but then for the last half an hour, just in case there isn't a qualifying session, that's when you go full gun and go for a decent lap.
That's assuming that the weather right now is not going to change, because it could also rain in the pre-qualifying session. So it's again, you have to keep your weather eye open, because right now I would say everything looks fair and nothing's going to change. The weather's going to stay constant. There's a little bit of sun breaking through. It's a comfortable ambient temperature. It's a rather lower track temperature, and for people like BMW, and certainly we're listening to earlier in the morning Dries van Thor trying to say why they're not getting the performance from the BMW that they would like, and I tried to explain what my thoughts were on that, and that is again a track tire temperature relationship. So if you can get your car making the front tire work, particularly as going into the slower corners, not so much high speed corners, because then the aero balance will make the difference. But here, for example, we've got 3 chicanes. The first 2 are relatively low speed second gear chicanes. So you come down Retrofilia, that's the one we've just gone through. Now we're coming down to Rogia. So you're down in effect to second gear, big brake for both those chicanes. The front tire may yet not have the operating window temperature that it needs. Some cars will get there sooner. I mean, I believe, and I only know this from third-party hearsay because nobody's going to tell you precisely why. A Mercedes is such a great car, Mercedes AMG GT3, but it seems that it makes the front tire work very well and quickly, whereas with the BMW, I think at the minute, they're not able to do that. Now, look, I know all about tires and tire temperature because I suffered all that back. How many years was that? Did I say? I didn't mention the number of years. But if you haven't got the ability to get tire temperature, I don't mean surface temperature, I mean tire core temperature, the car won't respond to the wheel the way you would like. In a race, when you've got more fuel on board, there's more weight on board the car, that puts more energy into the tire, and the car comes alive. But of course, the frustration will be going into qualifying, and you know that you haven't got the likely possibility of maxing out the potential of the team.
Well, we're getting some great comments and questions coming in from the viewers, obviously watching along. Mark Tucker agrees with you, John. He says that Mercedes cannot be beaten in GT3. I think that's a bit aspirational to say this early in the weekend.
Well, I think the consensus view is that the Mercedes AMG GT3 package, apart from being just probably the archetypical, now we've got this whole full course yellow thing, the safety car.
Yeah, we should just point out to people who are just tuning in for the first time, there is no incident out on the circuit. This is just a simulation of the drive-by effect, the wave-by.
Yes.
This is new for 2023, essentially, this procedure.
Yeah, I mean, this was flagged up, sorry to use the pun with the yellow flags, but it was flagged up just before the session got underway. So we're going to see the safety car join the circuit. He will determine, I don't know how he's going to determine what the lead car is, or is he just going to pick up the first car that gets up to the first car that catches up to the tail of the safety car will effectively be the race leader. So now, interesting, are these cars being waved through by the safety car? I'm waiting to see. So he's dived in and chosen the next, maybe 26 Audi. That might become effectively the race leader. So that means the Ferrari, that's the first car ahead of the Audi safety car, it can sprint away, in theory, to catch up to the tail. But where is the rest of the field? Because we haven't got a full 55 car field on track right now. We've probably got about 45-ish or so, but they may be a different part of the racetrack. So there is the safety car running at a mandatory 80 kilometers per hour. And everybody behind has got to stay within effectively 5 car lengths. Certainly the first car behind the safety car is going to stay 5 car lengths so that you don't get this kind of seesaw effect that can be used sometimes to your own benefit.
Well, that is the number 25 Audi of Patrick Niederhauser, the car that is the fastest at this moment in time. So that's why they've chosen that car to pick it up, I guess. So an interesting procedure. This is all scheduled. This is all correct and above board. This is how they were supposed to be preparing and getting on with things. So this is obviously correct and above board. So everybody is just gearing up and getting everything ready. Patrick Niederhauser, fastest so far, in front of Jules Gounod and Marco Wittmann. 3 different manufacturers in the top 3, all German: Audi, Mercedes, BMW.
This is the frustration of this exercise. Gounod had gone on his second flying lap, had done a fastest first sector time, but of course he had to abort all that now that the safety car procedure, and this is an educational thing for all the competitors. So he'll say, oh, well, bad timing. I could have gone quickest overall once again. And he was the quickest overall in this morning's session. He did a 146.184. And that was, in the end, just 75 hundredths of a second ahead of the Fabian Schiller, the 777 Kodas ASP, that AMG Team Almar entry. So Mercedes really just stuck together. And going back to the subject about how good the Mercedes AMG GT3 is, it is a fantastic car. But there are other manufacturers who will win races for all different reasons you can think of.
So as part of this simulation procedure, the pit lane is actually closed at this point. So if you're in pit lane already, it doesn't make too big a difference. But obviously, while you're out on the circuit, you cannot pit in. So you have to stay out onto the circuit. Now, it's interesting, there are a handful of cars that have chosen to be in pits during this procedure. The number 96 Porsche from Rutronic, they are in pit lane at the moment. So is the number 40 Trezor Orange 1 Audi. So
safety car.
Also we have the number 52 Ferrari is in pit road. That is Andrea Bertolini in the AF Corsa, the bronze car, the 488. We also have Christopher Haase and Alexander Nezov are in the pits as well. So that is the Comtu Audi number 11 and the Mad Panda Motorsport Silver number 90. And the only other cars that are in pit lane are the Parker Porsche number 62 of Derek Pierce and the number 8, that is Nicolas Jamin of the AGS Events Lamborghini.
Now, when the safety car does come in, first of all, the orange flashing lights on the roof, they will be turned off, and that will be the signal to drivers, and teams will be able to advise their particular driver-car combination that the safety car will be coming in. Now, there's a long line of cars. I wonder how many will follow the safety car into the pit lane, or how many of them will remain on track and continue on the work that they had embarked on prior to this safety car exercise.
So obviously this is all part of the procedure, folks. There is no incident on the circuit. This is all just part of the procedure so that the drivers and teams are aware of what the situation is going to be in 2023. For argument's sake, let's look at the top 5 per class. So at the moment, the leading car is a Pro, and obviously that is to be expected. Patrick Niederhauser in the Santalok Audi, in front of Jules Gounod in the Akodis ASP Team Mercedes. The Rowe Racing BMW is third, in front of Marco Wittmann. Then Mercedes Almanar number 777, Maro Engel is in fourth. And then the Rutronic Porsche number 96 that is in pit lane is Thomas Preining. So, race director has just informed us that the safety car is going to wave by the field. That is Alan Adam, of course, who is going to now take over this procedure. So this is obviously going to be an education for all of us as to how this procedure will essentially play out.
I think it's a case of look and learn. So the first
Start
car,
wave by. Start wave by.
So the first car will be given an indication from the safety car, and there it is. It's pulled over. The safety car is pulled over to the left of the track and allowed the field. And this is part of the field going through. And well,
so this is essentially allowing other classes to catch up and unlap themselves.
Yeah.
This is what we were talking about this over lunch yesterday with Greg Masters, weren't we?
Yes, and there will be some who will be winners and some who will be disappointed. But it's considered. It's always an issue about when a safety car is introduced who wins and who loses. And so a 3-hour race, there's a lot to be won and lost. In a sprint race, probably not quite the same, but here we are looking at a 3-hour endurance race here at Monza, and it will be pivotal if we do have a full course yellow and then a safety car intervention, that everybody is understanding of the procedures and doesn't get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you'll be penalized.
Well, this kind of has similarities to me to what they have in Japan as a procedure, because you have the GT500 and GT300 cars are separated into 2 lines on the main straight. They actually bring them to a stationary stop, and then they wave the GT300 cars through to join up the back of the GT500 again, and then they restart it.
Would you say that's Japanese logic, or just there's no logic in
do you know what?
the rest of the world?
That's an interesting question.
But they are a very naturally logical nation.
Well, they do it, I guess, to, you know, ease congestion on a restart. And you know what? It does work, because the GT500 cars disappear 10 seconds faster per lap up the road, and it works on a restart.
Part of these, if you like, the excitement is seeing a mix and match restart, and that really is a test of the skill of both the drivers and the GT300 and 500. Anyway, whatever way, what we've got here is what we are going to be dealing with for the remainder of the season, and it's important that. So there, the safety car again pulls way over to the left, and
now,
well, are they staying on track, or are they going in the pit lane?
They look like they're going to come into the pits.
Well, they're not. Well, some of them
The
just are
wave
coming
bay
in.
is completed, pit lane is open, and just waiting now for all the cars to catch up the group.
There's confirmation.
Yeah, so obviously once the pit lane is open, everybody's diving. We have had enough of this game. We're going back into the pits and do something which to them will be of more value than hanging out with a group of cars running around behind the safety car. But it is an important element within the whole and it's something that drivers and teams need to learn, not just on the hoof, but they need to be fully convinced of what will be involved and the procedures that are now being introduced.
So just to inform you all, for those who are unclear or those who are only just joining us, we are in pre-qualifying. This is not a race. This is pre-qualifying, so it is essentially another test session which forms the grid if qualifying cannot be run, but also it gives us a chance to run through simulations and procedures that are new, which is exactly what we're doing now. We are running through a simulation.
Safety car in this lap, safety car in this lap.
So merci beaucoup, Alain Adam, race director, who tells us that the safety car is coming in this lap as part of the simulation procedure for this pre-qualifying session. Once the safety car comes in at the end of this lap, we return back to full pre-qualifying procedure.
Green track conditions. Yellow flag, you have to slow down. When it's a full course yellow, you've got to slow down to a maximum of 80 kilometers per hour and get into a line eventually behind the safety car and make sure that that gap doesn't drift one way or narrow up or close down another way. So here we go, safety car's picking up pace. The light will probably go out somewhere up around Ascari, which is the final chicane before we come down to turn 11. The wonderful, magnificent, I've run out of adjectives to describe Parabolica.
Do you know, it's actually my favorite corner in motorsport.
It's a great corner. I tell you that I'm privileged to have driven on racetracks where there are innumerable mega corners, and Parabolica, and part of what makes Parabolica such a great corner is on the inside there's a photographer's stand which is about 10 feet above the racetrack. So the photographers are looking down and they can actually see, or they could see in the good old days when you could look into a car's cockpit, you can see the driver's actions and attitude of car. And some of the great photographs of motorsport history have been taken from that particular photographer's stand on the inside of Parabolica.
So the safety car will pull in at the end of this lap around.
Actually, no.
Safety car, lights off, lights off.
I think I got that one right, at least. But there's one photograph that really stands out, and it's probably one of them tens of thousands of photographs. And it was of a very unusual team. It was a private team, and they had a Brabham, and it was painted brown. And it's in Parabolica, and it's the attitude of the car to the apex of the corner. To me, looked absolutely perfect. Do you know who was the driver?
Go on.
Correct. You're right.
Oh, really?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know.
No. If you have a Google search, you'll see.
Green flag, green flag.
I don't know who the photographer was, but it just encapsulates what, for me, is the essence of Parabolica as a wonderful, it's a long corner. It opens up a lot on the exit, so you allow the car to not to drift out, but to run wide, minimize the kind of slip angle to get the maximum acceleration. And in the background, you can see just the exit also of what was the original banking, or the banking. This is a dual road banked racetrack. I mean, the place has got history written all over it, like just love it to bits.
You really do. I can see it. It's
love
wonderful.
it to bits.
Well, answers on a postcard, please, for who was at the wheel of that
I've
brown
given you the
Brabham.
answer. I told you who it was. Do you know who it was?
Go on.
Me.
There you go. I didn't get that bit.
Oh, come on.
Because you went correct. I didn't say you.
I thought you were on this.
I haven't quite got the win yet. I will get there. I will catch up. I will. So we're back under pre-qualifying conditions once again. The Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS, the Endurance Cup.
Mad Panda. Now they do have I suppose you'd call it about a 20-second scale, not a real Panda, I have to say, that sits in the cars in the pit lane, not obviously at a session like this. And I did ask Yuzuki El Perez Compact, I said, do you carry that thing with you? It's like having a child's got a little sort of teddy bear. Well, they've got a panda bear, and what's that all about? Oh, dear me.
Yeah, that's not gone well. We don't want any more incidents there. We had an incident in the GT4 European Series qualifying session.
Valkenhorst BMW M4.
So let's have a look and see what happened.
There's another set of flat spotted tires. Wow! Oh, now again, with ABS, why are you locking your wheels up like that? Now you have adjustments. There it is, the Valkenhorst and Buchhardt, Anders Buchhardt and the Valkenhorst. So that's going to be a sort of threepenny bit set of front tires. Okay, maybe it's a set of tires that ran all of this morning, so they were going to be consigned to the Pirelli bin. Nevertheless, you never know. You might have needed that set of tires in extremis.
So they continue on their way around the course as they're trying to build up the speed once again. It's worth remembering, of course, that in remembrance of in deference to 100 years of racing at Monza, what we call Parabolica is now, of course, called Alboreto, because it was named after the great Italian driver Michele Alboreto, the last man, I think, from Italy to stand on the podium at Monza for Ferrari. I think that's correct. I'm not sure if someone's going to correct me, but I think Michele Alboreto was the last Italian to stand on the podium at Monza driving for Ferrari.
I've got another stat that might outstat that stat.
Oh, go for it.
And that is, who was the last driver to win a Grand Prix with a Cosworth DFE or a derivative of the DFE?
I'm going to say that's you. Oh, no, it's not, is it?
No, it's not me. No.
I thought I picked up on that. I'm going to say, well, the DFE derivative, would that be Schumacher?
No, I'm talking about that.
The old DFE.
The original DFE.
The original DFE.
You just mentioned his name.
Did I? Michele Alboreto?
Correct.
Would that have been 1983?
83. Can you tell me the venue?
It was the United States, wasn't it?
It was.
It was in Detroit.
Correct.
There you go.
Very good.
I'm getting there.
No. But who was third?
That would have been you.
That was me.
See, I'm getting your wavelength now, John. I'm getting there. There we go. An hour and 5 minutes still to go in pre-qualifying for the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS, the Endurance Cup.
Iron Dames, not in a Ferrari, in a Lamborghini. And they did a great job. I mean, absolutely stunning job in the Spa 24 hours.
Oh, didn't they?
Absolutely. Just mind-blowing.
I mean, it's very, very difficult for a commentator to show bias to a team and want them to win more than any other. But after the agony that we saw in Barcelona with these guys, I really, really want them to have a strong 2023. I really want this to be their year.
I mean, it's a transitional year because they've changed from Ferrari to Lamborghini, and there's obviously other factors behind your bigger plans and different championships, whatever. So they've moved across, so they've got to learn. I mean, a Lamborghini, as an example, compared to the Ferrari, the 488 that they were running, quite different philosophies. When you look in the engine bay of the Ferrari, I looked in it yesterday and I said, where's the engine? Literally, it is that low and that small in the engine bay. And the Lamborghini is slightly more traditional road car in that it's got quite a large V10 Saudi-based engine. But it sits higher, so the center of gravity is slightly higher up in the car, which then immediately introduces other compromises when you want to make that car into a race car. So basically, you want everything on the ground, all the weight on the ground. I mean, a Formula E car, in some respects, is the perfect race car because the weight of the battery is so high that any other part of the car is way, way lighter. So the weight is as low as you can get it. Whereas in a conventional internal combustion engine, as we have here in these cars, depending whether it's a V8, V10, turbocharged, flat six, for whatever it is, the option straight six in the case of BMW, different centers of gravity, and has a big plan. The BMW there, Dan Harper, one of a number of drivers from Northern Ireland. Can't mention Northern Ireland because that's where I come from. Anyway.
Oh, we can mention
Northern
Northern
Ireland. There's the 296 Ferrari, which has yet to really make me say that is what. I mean, I think the car looks gorgeous, and it's got all the yellow, the acknowledgements of the Curie Francorchamps. Jacques Swatters was a Belgian garage owner. His garage business was called a Curie Francorchamps, and they ran Ferraris in period, and that's sort of an acknowledgement of a partnership with that great Belgian race team.
But wasn't it Enzo Ferrari that once said the best looking car is a winning car, or something along those lines?
Well,
and so far, it's not been doing that.
Well, he also said that the heart of a race car is its engine, and all the aerodynamics and all the rest is just there to support the engine. I mean, El Commendatore was a wonderful man, and he achieved such amazing things, and he created one of the most iconic brands of any brand in the world. But those are the views of a man who was a pre-war. He ran the Alfa Romeo team in what was called then Grand Prix racing. It wasn't Formula One. Before he then set off on his own journey with manufacturing his own cars. So he had his own views, which were probably those of a man of his age at that particular time.
So the battles will continue through pre-qualifying as they continue to run in close proximity. Currently at the top spot, we have Maro Engel in the Almanar Mercedes AMG 777. Dennis Marshall brings the Trezor Orange 1 Audi back up into second position. And the bronze Ferrari from AF Corsa, Andrea Bertolini, is currently third on a 147.4. So we're only just now starting to get into the 146s. There is Andrea Bertolini. Very seasoned campaigner for Ferrari, and a great character within the squad.
Well, he is a part of the wallpaper at Ferrari. I mean, he's been there, I think, must be, if not 30, maybe 35 years. And he is development engineer, race driver, extremely accomplished, extremely successful. And he is the perfect partner to put in a car alongside the 52. I'm looking at it. That's not 52.
It is the 52, yeah, that's the 488 car. It's the, you've got the...
I'm on the wrong page, aren't I?
Are you? Are they on the same page?
It's the Louis McHale's, and I knew it was, and his son, Jeff. So it's father and son and Andrea Bertolini, and Andrea Bertolini is driven for season upon season with McHale's himself.
Right, there's a famous name that's gone up to the top spot. Patrese. Lorenzo Patrese has gone up to the top spot, very much following in his father's footsteps at Monza, lapping quickly. He has put the Trezor Adepto Racing Audi onto the top spot. And young Lorenzo Patrese, absolutely a great talent. I watched him many a weekend, week in, week out in karting when he went into the OK Junior category, then into OK, and he is definitely a talent to watch.
Yes, and he's actually, on that last lap when he put himself quickest in this session, has gone 1/10 of a second quicker than that car, and I think that car would have been driven, I'm not sure. So anyway, that's improvement for the 99 Audi, and we've got then the two Mercedes, Maximilian Goertz in the 8, Goertz, who used to chat, he was really Max, what was the little Maxi, Max Goertz and Max, the second driver who used to drive with Max Goertz. It'll come to me.
It will come to us.
So, exiting, the long view all the way. This is camera position, is right at the outside of the exit of Parabolica, looking to see braking. So there is Lorenzo Patrese, and quite a different line, and looks like he's got to shed more grip at this phase, at this point, than the Ferrari he's following. So he's picking up the draft. He's still about 4 car lengths behind, but will he make a move down the inside? We noticed another GT2 in particular, just how much the bumps on the braking coming into the first chicane is having an effect on cars, and we saw it this morning. A lot of the GT3 cars were staying away from the natural entry point into the chicane, really making a very late cut in an effort to avoid the bumps. Maxi Book.
Maxi Book.
Got it. You had a look on this thing,
I literally did it at exactly the same time as you. I got it.
Max Book just
there
had a momentary lapse.
It's been a long day.
He's retired. He's retired. A great shame.
He has indeed, yeah, Maxi Book. And I wonder if he's watching along now because he can't quite get away from it. I find that racing drivers cannot stop themselves watching motor racing even when they've hung up their helmet for good. Lorenzo Patrese, currently the leader overall, not just in the Silver Cup. That's worth pointing out as well. We've got the colours denoted by the graphics on your screen. White, of course, denotes pro. Silver denotes blue. Orange denotes bronze. And of course we have the pro, which is denoted by red. So you'll pick it up over the course of the season as we go on.
And also on the Looney rank on the windscreens on the top right-hand corner, which is gives it both the position or alternates with position on the driver. So on the top right-hand corner of every windscreen of every car is an item called a Looney rank, and that electronically will give a prompt to the car position and the driver at 777. There it is. Currently second quickest, Mauro Engel behind the wheel. Just on the Lorenzo Patrese, to illustrate how much of a family the Patrese family is. Last weekend there was an event at Goodwood members meeting, and Brabham, the next driver, Ricardo drove for Brabham. I'm trying to simplify what I'm saying. So Lorenzo and Ricardo were there, father and son supporting dad, and I suspect dad will be down here now this weekend here at Monza supporting son.
He is. And I managed to catch up with him in the podium, in the pit lane, yesterday. It was good to see Ricardo very much in a different mode. It's very different when you're a father supporting your son going through their racing journey compared to when you're focusing on your own racing journey yourself. And it's obviously a great amount of pride. There is Mauro Engel in the Almanar Mercedes Treble 7, chasing after the 296 Ferrari.
Yes, he's spent now nearly a lap behind the Ferrari. And bearing in mind the pace of Engel's car this morning vis-a-vis the pace of the two AF Corsa 296s, either Ferrari have unleashed performance that they didn't want to illustrate this morning, or suddenly Mauro Engel's having to, well, Engel's gone, look, you can see sector 1 gone purple, so his pace is strong, but that pace has now it's dropped off by just half a second because he's gotten into the aero zone behind the Ferrari. But nevertheless, I want to see what time that Ferrari records at the end of this lap, because I think it's going to lift it considerably above where we saw those two Ferraris this morning.
So Mauro Engel is going to make the dive up the inside of the Ferrari during a pre-qualifying session, and that is a very nice moment for Mercedes fans, watching them go past the new 296 GT3 with very little hesitation, and then come straight back into the
both
pits.
coming, so Nicholas Nielsen and the Ferrari likewise. So both completed a flying lap. On that in-lap, Mauro Engel got fastest sector and sector 1. So again, it's part of the race preparation. You hammer it all the way until you come to the pit lane, and then you have to stand on the brakes to get the speed down to 50 kilometers per hour.
But look, let's do a dance with Ronnie Reel here, because you've got the Ferrari 488 of Andrea Bertolini in the top 6, and the new 296, 28th and 32nd.
Yeah.
Is that not panic stations at this point?
No. It's early days. The 488 is such a well-honed product. I mean, when it came in, it superseded the 458. 458 was naturally aspirated. The 488 was turbocharged, and everything about the 296 is new. The difference between the 458 and the 488 was not massive. Just you put a couple of turbochargers on it and other clearly changes to accommodate that. But the 296 is a whole new platform. The chassis, the aerodynamics, the mechanics, not the electronics, because that's probably very much current electronics technology that they will have fitted to the 296's V6. Haven't seen a V6 race in a Ferrari wow, and I'm just trying to think the last time I saw a V6 race in a Ferrari. It may, in a works Ferrari that is, it may be as far back as the heady days of 1961 when the Ferrari 156 won the World Championship. Phil Hill became the first American world champion in
As far back as that?
I think that's the last time. I'm trying to remember. There was in that era. They then went from the V6 to a V8, which I think they did around about 63, 64. So it was the early 60s. But I'm talking about winning, and in 62 the car had been caught by the British engineers and teams, and Coventry Climax and BRM had very, very, very good power units. But it's a very long time, I believe, since you've seen effectively a Ferrari with a V6, a factory Ferrari, and now a customer car likewise, with a V6 motor in it. I'm sure there'll be somebody who will correct me on that, but I'm struggling to think what other V6 Ferraris there would have been from that 60s time.
We'll keep the nerds and bookworms on standby just in case. Hugo Chevalier currently stretching the legs of the CLRT Porsche, number 44, currently in 43rd position. And oh, we've had an off at the Parabolica, is that? That looks like the BMW, is it?
It looks like a BMW from here.
Yeah, it's the WRT BMW. I think that might be the 46. I think that might be the Valentino Rossi car with Valentino Rossi in it.
Well, Valley, there wasn't...
And it's red flags.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised because the car is backed in tyre wall and the Protect barrier, you can see that has been displaced. So it's gone in reasonably quickly. Doesn't look like there's the damage in the car certainly isn't as severe as it would have been in the good old days. Nevertheless, that car will be taken in. It'll not be doing much more running. With just 52 minutes of this session remaining.
We've got 3 cars currently under investigation for pit lane speed. One of them is the Acodis ASP Mercedes running in 3rd overall, Lorenzo Ferrari. So that's a slight problem, which could come back to bite them. They could get a lap time deleted or potentially a fine. So we'll have to pick up on that. The other 2 cars that are under investigation for pit lane speeding is the 58, that is Sam Neary in the Grasser Lamborghini. And the
estimated restart 15:02. 15:02.
So there we go. There is the confirmation that we're 15:02 is when we are going to get restarted because the number 46 has hit the tyre barrier.
Just on the penalties and fines, who topped the Euro penalty sum? And it was, well, I'll put you out of your misery. It was Rob Collard collected 2 BWPs and a hefty 1,450 euro fine for speeding in the pit lane. Miguel Ramos picked up 2 BWPs yesterday for speeding in the pit lane.
Well, there's Valentino Rossi discussion with marshals. Let's see what happened to Valle. Oh, yes. That was big.
A lot of the speed had been scrubbed off, but what led to that we didn't get to see. Unfortunately, the camera was looking way towards the exit out of the Ascarium, and Valentino's out of the car. So that's a disappointment for Valentino, in particular for WRT and the 46 car. So they need to get that back, and it's going to take some time, I suspect, to pull that technical barrier back into place and get the tyre bales behind also. It could be 10-15 minutes stoppage.
Well, the Valentino Rossi fan club won't be terribly happy that their boy has gone off. He was currently running in 13th overall, 147.5.
That was, I would say, well, 3 BMWs, because Dan Harper actually in the 998 has gone 6th quickest provisionally. So we weren't seeing much of BMW's speed in that session this morning. Now we're getting to see maybe a truer picture of what's been going on. And some of Charlie Fagg and the McLaren up to 21st.
That's more like it.
Yeah, Louis Petit up into 23rd. So McLaren's coming forward. Where are we?
Looking at the...
I'm just looking at Eddie Cheever, the 3rd in the Sky Tempesta. McLaren currently only 47th, but I think that's not a reflection of the pace of the drivers or of that car.
No, indeed. We're just looking at the Get Speed Mercedes as Valentino Rossi is now going to have to make a quick walk back to the paddock. Now, this is going to be a problem because there are more fans here for Valentino Rossi, potentially, than there are for any other group of drivers here this weekend put together. So when he gets...
Hold on. I've signed about 2 dozen autographs.
You have signed, yeah,
so
I saw you.
I'd probably come in second place.
That's true, you're probably second, John. So what Valentino Rossi's going to have a problem with here is getting back to his pit garage, because he's obviously doing it that way. He's going to have a tough job breaking through the throng.
I suspect a car of some description, track car, maybe not a medical car, he doesn't need that, but I suspect there'll be a vehicle will drive him from Parabolica. I wouldn't anticipate him walking. First of all, he's got to cross the racetrack, but there he's about to do that. Whether he, and you can see the marks where he came off.
Oh yeah, you can.
So those are marks of brakes locked. But what caused it to do that? And they begin, he was on line coming in, and if you look up at the top of your screen, you can see the beginning of the marks in that white part.
Yes, you can, actually.
And then it follows and it comes on a curve. So what caused that is difficult to tell.
Well, they've managed to get the car out of the barrier, so now they need to repair the barrier. So I think, actually, Valentino Rossi will be able to get back in the car, restart it, and get it back to the pits. So I don't think he has to walk back.
I mean, assuming the car will restart, I'm assuming there's no damage per se that we can't see. Because when you back a car in, you can do a small amount of damage. There are radiators in that boot, what you call the trunk area of the car.
Well, down in pit lane, we're obviously going to get a word with a few drivers through the course of this pre-qualifying session. Robert Schwartzman is down in pit lane with Gemma Scott.
Robert, we were chatting a little bit earlier on about the pace of the car and the struggles that you've had this weekend. I know you didn't have a radio this morning running. What's going on at the moment?
Well, I think we're struggling a little bit with some technical issues. Like I said, there was a radio issue that we didn't have radio in FP1. We fixed it. Now it seems the car doesn't have any issues, so that's a positive. We're just testing a few things, and yeah, I mean it's something new for me. I'm just it's my first race, so I'm just getting used to how everything works here. But yeah, just need to solve some issues, and that's it.
And obviously Nicholas has been in the car in this session. Have you spoken to him? How's he found it now?
No, I haven't, but I heard everything what he said, all the feedback he gave. So I mean, I'm pretty aligned with what he had now in the FP1. So we need just to improve the car, and yeah, I mean, we're struggling with few things, and hopefully for tomorrow we can fix them.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you.
So Robert Schwartzman for Ferrari, doing the best he can with the situation. Valentino Rossi obviously being recovered, and I'm seeing a few comments from people about Valentino Rossi saying that he is not ready for this. Or what first I can say is, how dare you? Do you know anything about what he's done in a GT car over the last 5-6 years?
I think it's a bit harsh to say he's not ready for it.
He's absolutely ready.
But I think it's fair to say that he stepped into the most competitive GT series in the world, and you're measuring yourself against the best GT3 drivers, and that's a tall ask. And when you've spent your life fundamentally on 2 wheels, and okay, he's done some rallying and he's done a little bit of racing also up until he joined in last year, but he has moved forward. I mean, it's difficult sometimes to appreciate the progress that he has made. But if you take his first, say when he first drove for WRT in the Audi in the early part of 2022, he would do a test at a given circuit and he would record a time. By the time the season ended in September, end of September, October, he had probably picked up the best part of 2.5, 3 seconds, just simply because that's how much he had improved. As he goes on, those improvements will probably become smaller, but he'll get there. What I'm curious is what caused Valentino to lose control. Is that a wheel? Looks like it's a rim.
I think it might have been, yeah.
But I mean, the car looked to be on all 4 wheels and tires, but that looked like a rim. Whether that was from somebody, I don't know. Just caught a glimpse of something that looked suspiciously like a wheel rim. But anyway, the issues that caused Valentino to lose control look, I think, to be either he was too wide on the brakes entering, he clipped the grass on the left-hand side, or there was an issue with the brake itself. So maybe when Valentino gets back, maybe not Valentino himself, but certainly someone in the team might be able to give us a heads up.
So the car that is currently leading the way is the Attempto Tresto Audi, and Lorenzo Petresi is leading it.
Lorenzo, you've had quite a smile on your face. Quick in that session so far.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, it's a new atmosphere for us. It's a new team this year, but I'm finding myself really well. The car is really set up perfectly, and yeah, I'm enjoying.
And you've got a great line of drivers with you guys as well.
Yes, I'm sure for the silver category we will be competitive, but also for the overall we aim for a good result. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you a fantastic season. Thank you.
Thank you.
A very excited and very eager Lorenzo Patrese, trying to showcase that he is not just here to win the silver category, he's here to win races outright. It's going to be really interesting.
There you get a glimpse of the rear of Valentino's BMW. It's difficult to see. I mean, the bodywork will have flexed, but what I mentioned with the hood, the trunk, if you like, or the boot of these M4 BMWs, you've got quite a substantial oil cooler, but also you've got a cooler for the onboard air conditioning. So you've got a separate radiator to circulate the air conditioning, to then pump it through, and in the seat, the driver's seat, there's a hole in the back of the seat, and that is where the air-conditioned air then gets pumped in, basically around the driver's back and around mainly his lower trunk. So you look at these cars superficially, it's not a skrillion miles away from what you might buy in your BMW dealer showroom, but actually when you take the skin off, you think, well, where's my car? Because this is not what I bought. These are the nearest thing you're getting now to what would be called silhouette GT cars.
Well, there's an investigation for a pit lane infringement for Hubert Haupt of the Haupt racing team Mercedes. So that is currently being looked at. I'm not sure what the penalty is going to be for that. There's also a cancellation of the lap for the number 188 car for track limits at the Variante Ascari. So that is a bit of an issue then for the 188 car. That is Louis Pret in the McLaren. So they have had a bit of an issue there. The Mercedes crew looking very strong. Lorenzo Ferrari currently running third. And obviously the sister car, the 88, that was the fastest in free practice this morning. They're currently in 15th with Jules Gounod, so they're not quite up to where they were this morning.
I mean, I think it's... If everybody thought that there was going to be a total wipeout weather-wise Sunday morning, believe me, by the time we've got 41 minutes of this session remaining, that car is going to be at the front of or close to the front, because that would be then the determination for the race grid. I mean, they're not going to sit back and hover around. Where are they looking at? 15th position, 147.6, when they did a time of just approximately 1 second faster this morning. Now, remember that qualifying tomorrow morning will be at an identical time to what we saw this morning, whereas where we are now, these times and temperatures are more akin. The race will get underway exactly 24 hours from now.
We just saw Jules Gounod there, the Andorran driver, who is based over in the beautiful little Principality of Andorra. As you may have noticed on the clock, the time is still ticking down. 41 minutes remaining in pre-qualifying. The estimated restart is 2 minutes past 3, although looking at the barrier work, I would say that might be a couple of minutes out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to get the barriers realigned and make sure that the tyre bales behind likewise. As you look at the Valkenhorst BMW, it's very creative. Whoever was the artist that came up with these graphics has done something which is great to look at. Hard to tell whether it works on television because the detail on it is so impressive, but it gets lost in a sort of a long-range camera lens. But as you go back to Parabolica, it's not just getting the corner, then they've got to get the vehicles and the personnel clear of that area. So it might be a couple more minutes before we get action back underway. 40 minutes remain of the session.
Session will restart at 15:03. Session will restart at 15:03.
Roughly 3 and a bit minutes away.
Yes, indeed. So just took an extra minute, I guess, to get the barrier realigned. And there is Andrea Bertolini getting back into the car. And that's the second they heard that command from Alan Adam.
The air intake's just behind the cockpit. That bleeds air in again because this is the 488. It is the turbocharged version of that, if you like to call it, 4 Series of Ferrari that has done the company so proud over years, both on the showroom floor but on the racetrack likewise.
So where are the order currently lying at the moment, as the restart is going to be 15:03 local time in the Silver Cup, which is currently the category that leads the way, courtesy of Lorenzo Patrese on a 1:46.5. They are a full second clear of Loris Hesmans in the Com2U Racing Audi, number 12. That is the second best silver car. And then Magnus Gustafsson in the Mad Panda Mercedes is the third best silver. Then the GRT Grasser Racing Lamborghini of Kay van Berlo is fourth, 20th overall. Tanard Sathentirokul in the dynamic Hubert Porsche is fifth of the silver cars. And then we have Cesar Gazzo in the Butsen VDS Audi, the Santalok Junior Team Audi of Paul Everard, the Grasser Lamborghini of Sam Neary, and then at the back is the Bullet Racing Aston Martin, currently being driven by Jeffrey Kingsley, and they are at the back. So we've got a silver at the top and a silver at the bottom.
Now, there you see on your right, on your left is the 296. On the right is the 488. Take your pick. Which would you have?
I mean, purely on the fact that it's new technology, you quite like the idea of the 296, but the dependability of the 488, you can't really knock it at the moment. And which of the cars is currently fastest? The 488, 0.6 of a second away from the top spot.
In discussion with Vincent Voss, explaining what he thinks was the cause of that incident.
But I don't know if it's a part that is together with the rest, just apart from the because I feel like
it's very tempting to listen in, but unfortunately we can't get a decent enough volume on what Valentino Rossi is actually saying.
And like Christopher, he's diving in as well, just to...
It's a long 37 minutes ahead for these guys, because obviously the car has been brought back in on a low loader. And if you're Augusto Farfus or Maxime Martin, you've got to keep a lid on your emotions at the moment.
Well, this is a replay. We don't see the start of the incident, we just capture it as there he goes. I mean, he's probably going backwards about 50, 60 kilometers per hour as he hits the Tech Pro barrier, which does a great job, protects the driver, and it probably mitigates some of the damage, potential damage. If that was just going straight into a tire wall, the damage to the car would have been greater.
Very unfortunate that Valentino Rossi's first pre-qualifying session of 2023 ends like that. Green flag. The command is given by race director Alan Adam. And we go back onto the circuit with 36 minutes and 45 seconds roughly still to go. So this will be a real indication. And don't forget, if the qualifying session is rained off completely, the times at the end of this session will set the starting grid for Sunday's main event.
Yes, I mean, right now you can see the sky looks, I think, pretty fair. There's a few bubbles in the sky, but I don't believe, although if you look at the way back, there was, I would suggest, rain falling just at the foot of those hills, maybe about 20 kilometers away, whether it's coming in this direction or not. But right now, I think we're going to see, what, 36 minutes remaining. It's going to be reasonably clear and clean as we ride on board Stephen Paulette in the Porsche for the CLRT team. Oh, that lovely flat six screen as we cut back now to the car, that second quickest, Lucas Stoltz behind the wheel.
So there is Patrese, Stoltz, Ferrari, the top three. There is the Almanar Mercedes, Lucas Stoltz in the car, ready to go out onto the circuit to try and push the Tresor Attempto Racing Audi off the top spot and restore some balance to the force, as it were. The pro cars have been quite used to running at the top spot. They don't really want some young whippersnapper Italian in the silver category coming in and changing things.
Well, let's say, for argument's sake, what we have now, the top 10 became the grid. There are some interesting interlopers. I mean, you've got the 99 Audi. Well, Alex Acker's taken over that now. Further down the field, you've got Dan Harper in the 998 BMW, Louis McKeels in the 52. Ferrari in the 888 Audi as well. I mean, there's cars that one would politely suggest are out of position in what we would expect to be the conclusion of three separate qualifying, 15-minute qualifying runs from Sunday morning.
Well, what I'd expect to see now, with us having only 35 minutes left, now what I would expect to see is everybody going for a proper qualifying run. This is going to be it now. We're going to see what sort of pace these cars have got. These BMWs, two of the three WRT BMWs that are left after the disappearance of the number 46, this is going to be interesting to see how these guys work together, or if they don't.
Oh, no, no. Oh, no, excuse me. Oh, no. Charles Weerts in a pro car, is he going to work with his, Pro-Am or whatever entry? I don't think there's much chance.
Fair
the
play.
Optimum McLaren slithers down the inside and just got, yes, he's gotten clear. But Weerts is on a mission. He wants to get on with the program, and he needs to clear the Audi directly ahead of him, and he knows the Audi's strengths. So that isn't going to be an easy overtake for the young Belgian driver. And someday we're going to stop calling Charles Weerts young. We started doing it when he came in about 3 years and a bit ago. He's grown, and he's a well-seasoned.
Very nearly immortal.
Yeah, I know. He and not Lawrence, Dries van Thor have done an amazing job for that WRT team.
So we're picking up the pace, and down in the pit lane, we're obviously hearing some great stories. And it'll be interesting to see what happens as the 33 minutes of the pre-qualifying session continues. Gemma Scott has been running up and down the pit lane grabbing stories. Hopefully we'll be hearing another great interview very soon indeed. Out in front, Alex Acker is currently in the Trezor Attempto Racing Audi that Lorenzo Patrese has put onto the top spot. A 146.5 from that car. It's a pair of Mercedes just in behind. Lucas Stoltz and Lorenzo Ferrari in the Almanar and Acadis ASP cars. Then the Trezor Orange 1 Audi of Dennis Marshall. Christian Engelhardt is in the dynamic GT Hubert Porsche. And then Dan Harper in the Rowe BMW in the pro category. The 998 car is currently in 6th overall. Then we have the AF Corsa Ferrari, the 488, the bronze car machine of Louis Machiels. Of course, it was Andrea Bertolini that did the lap time that put it right up in 7th.
Yeah. So now we've got Charles Weerts up behind a Ferrari, and this is again the 296. So again, we noticed prior to this last intervention that the Ferrari straight line speed is pretty impressive. Weerts, we think, is capable of lapping a single lap quicker than the Ferrari is at this present time, but that may not be the case for much longer, because Weerts is not making the progress that he would hope to have done. Oh, and another one, and a Porsche.
That's the Parker Porsche again, because that happened in free practice this morning, and I'm afraid the 62 Porsche with Derek Pierce at the wheel again has gone off again, and I think in exactly the same place.
It looks as if it could be the exit of what do you call it?
Lesmo 1.
It's Lesmo 1, or that is Lesmo 1, yes. Last time it was Lesmo 2.
Yeah.
That is Lesmo 1. Again, the car embedded in the gravel, and again, it's most likely going to be a red flag.
It is a red flag. Red flag is in front of us. Well, that's bitterly frustrating, isn't it? For all of us who really wanted to get green flags underway for a fair while, but I'm afraid there goes the Porsche of Derek Pierce for the second time in as many sessions, because he dropped it in free practice this morning, and I'm afraid it's happened again. That's disappointing.
Yes, this morning's one where he more or less lost coming. It was more on the entry to Lesmo 2. We don't know what he did here in this instance in Lesmo 1. It may be something we've got on camera, our cameraman around the racetrack. Well, I understand from the production unit we don't have a replay of that particular incident, but anyway.
Well, what this is particularly interesting, of course, is if this is going to be another long red flag.
I don't think it'll be as long as Valentino's, because it's only the car and the gravel. All they've got to do is get a unit to it, pluck it out, put it onto the grass, let it shake its head, and he can drive back to the pits.
But the time is still ticking down.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, this could be a very interesting grid if we don't get qualifying tomorrow. I mean, I know it's a backup plan.
That was the observation I made a few minutes ago.
Yep, it's happened again.
You got some people in the top 10 or the top 20 who would, under normal circumstances, might be out of position.
And we've said this time and again in motor racing. I've heard it be said by so many people: red flags breed red flags.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that comment, and I know the person who perpetrates it all the time.
Hope you're well, David.
On this occasion, not guilty, my lad.
No, not at all. Well done, David. He's here in spirit anyway. So, 30 minutes to go, and a few of those are going to be spent in the pits. There is the Iron Dames Lamborghini, currently being driven by Sarah Bovy, sharing that car, of course, with Ray Alfrey and Michel Gatting. Very strong lineup in that Iron Dames Lamborghini. Going to have to get used to saying the Iron Dames Lamborghini.
Yes, it'll take a bit of time. It's a bit like saying, you know, WRT BMW.
Yeah.
We're so inbred, or not inbred, we're so embedded in the thought of WRT and Audi. It takes the conscious decision at the moment to not say Audi, but say BMW. So the field coming back at an extremely slow pace is regulated. And there is potential pole sitting car, 88, which right now, whereabouts is it? It's all of Thomas Boguslawski behind the wheel, but it's still 15th. In effect, just prior to Valentino's big off in Parabolica, not any, times have not changed because there hasn't been a green lap to let everybody have a chance to make further improvement.
No, indeed. Frustrating for the fans, frustrating for us, frustrating for the spectators here at the sidelines to get another red flag so soon after the previous one. But obviously the time does not continue to tick down. So everybody continues to just allow this to follow on as it normally would. But it's the Trezor Attempto Racing Audi that is the top time in pre-qualifying. A Silver Cup car. There it is. This will be a nice turn up for the books.
Well, I'm a great proponent of mixing and matching up. As long as the drivers in that car and the driver lineup on that 99 Audi is a very strong lineup, so they will not be making themselves awkward or finding yourself in a position where you're out of position and uncomfortable. So if that was to be our grid, which I suspect it's not going to be, but in the eventuality that it is, then I think that the 99 Audi could acquit itself extremely well with starting from pole position.
Well, there we are. It's going to be an interesting development as Derek Pierce's car is manoeuvred out of the gravel trap and he can get back to the circuit, back to the pit lane under his own steam. So Derek Pierce will get it back. We're under red flags for that car spinning off the road at Lesmo 1. There go all the stones as he ejects them out onto the circuit.
Yeah. Luckily he's doing it on the off line. So anything that's going on the racetrack won't be. Look at the K-Packs, doesn't that look magnificent?
It is a gorgeous Lamborghini.
It's just actually the graphics on that is very simple, uncomplicated, but it looks mean. That looks a really mean Lamborghini.
Really does. Sandy Mitchell, the fabulous Scotsman, doing a great job as he is alongside Mapelli and Pereira. Fabulous talent, Sandy Mitchell. Been watching him for many years now. And it's great to see him in the K-Pax racing Lamborghini. Well, the WRT BMW team have had a bit of an interesting afternoon of it so far. Lewis Proctor is down in the pit lane with Gemma Scott.
Lewis, it's been a rather busy session so far. There's been so much going on. You were out first, were you?
Yes, that's right, yeah. So we did the safety car procedure thing and then got a few laps in. It's my first time at Monza racing here, so yeah, it's really quick. Lots of cars.
How are you finding the circuit? At the moment we've got bright sunshine, it's warm. Tomorrow we're expecting rain. It's going to be hugely different.
Yeah, it's just, we'll take it as it comes. The weather keeps changing, so it's just about focusing on now, enjoying the sun. The car's quite good around here. I'm not sure in the wet, not driven it yet, so we'll see.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Well, Lewis, enjoy your debut at Monza. It's one I hope you never forget, because to race on this racetrack, I believe, is one of the great pleasures in a racing driver's career. And you come here, it's a massive reputation of a racetrack. In the rain, of course, it's such a high-speed circuit. Then you have a major issue with visibility. And if Lewis has not driven here for the first time, as he mentioned, not in the rain either, he will get a bit of an awakening.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the difficulty of visibility in the rain as we get back underway, green flags, and out onto the circuit we go. Because Monza, compared to some of the other circuits perhaps in the wet, you've got the spray effect, but with it being in the middle of a national park, you've got that moisture that carries and just hangs in the trees.
Yeah, so not so much of this part of the circuit coming down Main Straight into the first chicane, but from the minute you exit, then you go through Curva Grande, and it's pretty much tree-lined all the way down to the second chicane, the Roja. Then you've got a load of trees, more so on the inside of the two Lesmos now, because there's runoff. And then you go down that sort of narrow, almost like a pathway, between the exit of Lesmo 2 and the run up into the Ascari. Then from Ascari down to the final turn, Tamburello. It's not Tamburello, what's it? Get my names all mixed up. Parabolica.
Well, we have to
Tamburello race.
say we have to say Alboreto now, don't we?
No, I know. Anyway, Alboreto, but I'm going to. It's still
Yeah, we're going to call it Parabolica. It's Parabolica at heart.
On my track map, it's Parabolica.
Yeah, it's Parabolica at heart.
But from here, you can see the light is much greater, so that means that the trees are not so close to the side of the racetrack, and therefore the spray does have a chance to dissipate more easily. But it is an issue, especially from the exit of the first Raffaello chicane all the way down to the entry into Ascari.
So now they've only got 24 minutes to get some fast times in to change things as far as they currently stand. The silver Trezor Attempto Audi is the fastest car overall, courtesy of that brilliant lap 1:46.5 set by Lorenzo Patrese. And the two Mercedes of the Almanar 777 and the Acodis ASP car number 87 are currently in the top three with them. We're still waiting to see Timo Boguslavski try and get the number 88 car that was fastest in free practice this morning, that car, to get back into the top three. We're on board now with Timo Boguslavski. So let's see how this car will pick up the pace. So this is the 88 car that we're on board with. Timo Boguslavski. The treble 8 car is up in the top 10, interestingly, the CSA Audi. That is the driver Erwin Creed, who has got the bronze car right up into the top 10, and that's only a whisker shy of Louis Machiels in the AF Corsa Ferrari. But Timo Boguslavski in the Mercedes, currently trying to get into the top 10 and hasn't done it so far.
Well, I mean, he's only behind the wheel of the car and he's had interruptions because of those 2 red flags. So he's now looking to get clear track, and ahead of him cars wandering around trying to get tire temperature. I hope they're aware that Boguslavski is on a run, trying to get a decent lap in. The camera freezes just as we enter. There's Boguslavski going into the Ascari chicane. Swings to the right, misses the apex a little bit, which maybe just more to do with tire temperature not having quite the bite, but flashing the headlights, weaving and maneuvering his way. Car staying in the right, some on the left, dives down, and then he'll cut back to the left to get his entry into Parabolica. So watch the hand movement from Timo Boguslavski. Now releases the car to try and reduce the slip angle, so it's full throttle all the way from basically a little after the apex of the Parabolica, and now just sit there, grind it out all the way down till you get into the braking zone. Listen to where he lifts off. That's nearly at just about 100 meters, just maybe a bit more than that, for braking into the first chicane. That's not bad for a heavy, a heavy GT car.
There is the Sky Tempesta McLaren, currently having an interesting day at the races, and it's Eddie Cheever III who is at the wheel. Down to the braking zone for the Redifilio, 150-meter marking board. That's where he plants the brakes, turns in, grabs a bit of curb, both in the right and the left, catches it on the exit.
Using first gear, interestingly. So it's not a second gear entry. I thought it was second gear, but it's actually for the McLaren. All the way down to first gear, then a quick shift up to second, third, and then make your way all the way up through the gears till you then have to go back down them again into the second chicane.
Behind the Sky Tempesta McLaren is the 4th Ferrari in the race, and that is the ST Racing Rinaldi Ferrari. John Miller is currently the driver, and John Miller in the Ferrari, they are actually under investigation for a pit lane infringement. I assume that's for speeding in the pit lane potentially. So John Miller in the 4th of the Ferraris, after the 488 of the Machiels family, along with Andrea Bertolini in the bronze AF Corsa car, and then the 2 Works AF Corsa cars, the 296s, which are still struggling. They are 33rd and 37th. That is not positive reading if you are back at Maranello. That is not where you want it to be at all with this new 296 GT3. But obviously there is a long way to go in the season. It's a difficult first race circuit to go on, but with this being the home race at Monza, they were kind of hoping for more than this.
Yes, I mean, the car has raced. This is not its first race, but it's his first race here in this championship in Europe. So, I mean, I hate to think that this is a sandbagging exercise, and then when it comes to qualifying, they're going to blow the doors off everybody.
It's such a cheap move, isn't it?
Well, you know, you don't want to maybe draw too much attention to yourself too early, because you balance it before. Now, Christian Engelhardt was all over the back of the Barwell Lamborghini, and he had to pull back in again. He came through the chicane, had to pull out, get alongside the Lamborghini, then coming into Parabolic, he's a couple of car lengths behind.
Well, they've got a chance to go fastest here because Christian Engelhardt is currently up in 5th position, the dynamic Hubert Porsche, so they have got a decent chance of going top of the timesheets here. But we're going to get to see, probably about 1/4 now, some fast times from people, as we're hopefully going to get to see, well, we may not get to see the cars go any faster than they already have. That's going to be an interesting situation if the 99 Trezor Attepto car doesn't get beaten. Now, this is a bit of a moment for the Audi. Whoops, straight through the marker board. Well, that's not gone according to plan for De Falco.
Yes, and that was noted by the race director that car 9 had that incident down at turn, well, actually it was an incident at turn 5, which is the exit of the second chicane. That was a separate incident. So there are incidents galore right now, and you can see the residue of the dust and all the polystyrene on the racetrack, which will get blown away pretty much. Marvin Kirchhofer in the 159 Garage 59 McLaren.
That'll be a bit of a distraction having that polystyrene over the road for a couple of people, won't it?
I mean, for your first time through, and all of a sudden the road looks like snow's fallen, but it's not as polystyrene. You just wonder what else there might be. But you have to think onwards and forwards, and once the driver's gone past it, he'll realise that that was just a polystyrene corner marker, and that's of no consequence whatsoever. Simon Gachet, am I mistaken? I see Boguslawski's gone up from 15th to 5th, and Simon Gachet in the same time has gone from wherever he was up to 3rd.
Yep.
So while we were gassing about something of no importance, two drivers have made some progress.
Yep.
Good to see as well. Boguslawski, I had hoped, would find some pace. 146.8 is still, compared to the time that car set this morning, it's about 8 tenths, 7.5 tenths away. But it's in the right direction.
The only other two cars that have made massive progress is the Winwood Mercedes of Russell Ward. They've climbed up to 22nd, and also down in 45th now, although they have made progress, Dylan Pereira in the other Trezor Attepto Audi making progress. Everybody else is still trying to get there. Gachet up to 3rd, as you mentioned. Boguslavski up to 5th, as you mentioned. And now up to 16th place. That is Benjamin Heat in the Grasser Racing Lamborghini. So they have managed to climb up in the 85 car. So there are drivers out there starting to find some progress.
Well, I think the realization, or the penny has dropped, that we're running out of time here, guys. We've got 16.5 minutes of the session to go. And that's going to be, in terms of laps, that's probably about maximum 8 laps or so, assuming that your driver doesn't come in and do a driver change. So if you want to put your hot guy with a set of tyres, as you point out, Evan Creed, who's done a very good job.
I was going to point out Philip Eng, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Philip
He's done an even better job.
Philip Eng has just done a 33.9 in the first sector. So that could be the BMW number 98, the Rowe Racing car, moving high up into the top 10 if they get the lap together. A 36.5 in the second sector again, so not far away, but could be a big jump for the number 98 BMW in a moment.
And Simon Gachet, on his current lap, his 3rd quickest overall, has gone green in sector 1.
Yep.
That's the first sector here of this 3-sector racetrack. So wait and see. Is there more to come from
Eng goes 6th. Eng goes 6th. So I did think he was going to be high up in the top 10 for the Rowe BMW, and he's gone P6.
So suddenly there is Philippe Eng and the Rover Racing BMW, and that is by about 3 cars the quickest BMW. You've got the 998 car, which is Dan Harper's car, but I don't think Dan was the driver who set that time. Just looking to see.
Well, there's been a change of driver in the Trezor Attepto Racing Audi that leads the way. Pietro Deleguanti has now taken over from Alex Acker, with Lorenzo Patrese obviously done for the session. As into the pits comes Timo Boguslavski. Is this going to be handing over to Jules Gounon? I think it could be. So we could be seeing Jules Gounon get into that car.
The car was up on jacks. What I would like to know is Was it up for a reason, or are they going to put on something? Simon Gachet, by the way, just gone second.
He has indeed. Good spot there, John, as he was on a flyer, and he was fastest that he has gone in the first and second sectors.
And his time is within 64 hundredths of a second of that of the current quickest car, the 99 Audi.
64 thousandths of a second. There's nothing in it now for the top spot. So I think the guys at Trezor Attempto Racing Audi, I think it's time to wake up to reality.
Number 9, DeFalco, purple second sector. So another Audi showing pace that we haven't noticed, but suddenly first time in a long time a purple sector.
Yeah, only the first sector was bad on that lap for the number 9 Audi of Alberto DeFalco in the Boots and VDS car. So if they can get the first sector done right, we're going to have a different top spot.
But it's interesting, we haven't had purple sectors in a long time in this session, and there you just saw one pop up. It's now vanished. Where it's gone to, I don't know. So we wait to see.
But DeFalco's just done a 34.2 in the first sector. So again, their weak spot appears to be sector 1. They can still push to the 33s, but they are about 0.4 of a second away, nearly, in sector 1. If they can tidy that up, they've got a better chance. Now here's Pietro De Guanti, as we now switch to the sister car, the 66 car this is, trying to make progress. This is Dylan Pereira in the other of the Attempto Audis. So obviously the Trezor Attempto squad looking for the fastest overall time, but they also want to get their man Dylan Pereira as high up as possible in Pro-Am.
So right now Audi is first and second quickest, and then their next car is Riccardo Fella down in 7th. Following those 2 lead Audis, you've got 3 Mercedes and the first of the BMWs, and now what we've got 12.5 minutes. If it is going to be Jules Gounon going in to that 88 Mercedes, well,
no, it's Marcello.
It's Marcello. I'm just looking at the time.
Here we go.
So it's popped up. So Dame's Lamborghini just comes out of the pits as the Ferrari, Andrea Bertolini. I'm not sure Bertolini is still behind the windows. Louis McHales is behind the wheel of that car. 10th overall as a result of Bertolini's efforts.
Well, there's the Porsche of Lauren Heinrich for the Rutronek Racing Porsche team, sharing that car obviously with Thomas Preining and Dennis Olsen. It's going to be interesting to see what they can produce over the course of the rest of this session. They are doing their best to move their car up the ranks, but the number 96 Porsche currently finds itself in 18th place. Still doing a fair job, but obviously they're in pits at the moment. Lucas Stoltz, by the way, is the man who is trying to put the 777 Mercedes higher up. Thomas Drouet has got behind the wheel of the 87 Mercedes now. There they are. So Lorenzo Ferrari is out, and in gets Thomas Drouet. So that's going to be interesting.
It makes you think that there's a bit of an effort. Oh, I hate that. I hate seeing that. That I mean, it also illustrates just the stiffness. The stiffness across the front axle of these cars. You couldn't do that in the road version because they're not designed to do that. A race car is designed to take that kind of shock loading and impact. But I just find it, I'm uncomfortable watching it, and I just don't really. Why do drivers need to do it?
John Miller in the Ferrari, definitely not having a lot of mechanical sympathy with his 488. As another Ferrari comes into view. Is that the same car? Yes, it is. That is the 488 of John Miller coming into view, in the hope that he is going to have a slightly cleaner run to the Variante Rettifilio this time as he goes through Alboreto. Parabolica if you're old school. And onto the main straight once again, and coming into the pits. And I'm not at all surprised the way they took the Rettifilio. And this is one of the cars that's actually had to be very careful about its pit lane speed limit. We've got several cars now cutting turn 5. That's the exit of the Variante della Roggia, by the way. And there are 2 cars now under investigation for speeding penalties. One of them is the 87. The Acadis ASP.
Taken over.
It is, yeah. So they're under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. Very not good at this particular point in the session. And the other one is Daniele Diamato in the Dynamic Huber Porsche number 56, the silver car. So they're also under investigation for speeding in the pits.
Been a good day for the stewards, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Good income stream.
Alan Adam and Greg Masters have had a very busy day.
Lamborghini just on the exit which is at the 60, it's the 35.
It's the 85 on this
85.
occasion.
Yeah, just got a bit wobbly at the very exit when it needed not to do that.
Well, this morning when we were watching the 63 car have all sorts of problems, I wondered if we were going to have a similar weekend to the one that you and David had about 10 years ago here at Monza, when there was one Ferrari that just couldn't do anything right.
Well, the driver is, or was, from a nation which we don't want to talk about.
Indeed.
And he just was consistent in making errors, especially down in the area of Lesmo 1. It got to a point where I was parodying it. It was just I couldn't take the driver seriously.
That clip has gone viral.
I know it has gone viral.
Everybody's seen that a million times now.
And I haven't had a single love letter from the driver since.
You're not on the Christmas card list then?
No.
Fair enough.
They don't do Christmas cards.
That's true, they don't. Anyway, the 85 of, this is Benjamin Heat.
Yeah.
Benjamin Heates doing a good job there. 17th at the moment overall, a best time of a 1:47.6 as they're trying to get this car a little bit further in. We've got less than 10 minutes to go now, though, so we are running out of time to get these fast times in. Fastest in the first section, Marcello, 33.9.
Personal best it is for him.
But it's a whisker. It's less than a tenth of a second off the best Sector 1 we've ever had.
And it's one of the very few, if not the only car that's managed to get under the 34-second time for that Sector 1. So Raffaele Marcello, not the fastest overall in Sector 1, but pretty much close to it.
For
Wait to
goodness
see when he
sake.
comes up to Sector 2, he's having to get through traffic, but he cuts through traffic like a hot knife through cold butter. Slides the car through the transition, and
Look at the
on
time
it he's lost a fraction. So
I was trying to parody Raffaele Marcello in the helmet. For goodness sake, get out of the way. I've got a chance to go top here, and you're ruining it.
he can certainly make an improvement. It'll be maybe up to second, third, possibly third. Let's wait and see.
I think he's already thinking about the next lap.
Well, he might be doing that also, but he certainly will. He's going to make an improvement in terms of position from fifth as to where we wait to see.
There we are. They're going to stay in fifth position as they come across the line. Third. There we go.
Third. Good prediction.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do nicely for the time being. There's still a bit more time to find, though. And I think they would have found it in the second sector.
Again, watching Marcello coming into the chicane, running down the middle of the racetrack, trying to avoid those ever worsening bumps on the racing line. Eventually you've got to pull to the left, but you do it at the last possible moment.
There is the number 10 Audi waiting to go back out onto the circuit. That is Cesar Gazzo for the Boutsen VDS team. Thierry Boutsen and Van der Straten. A dynamic duo that really has taken control of GT racing in Belgium, France, and then further afield as well.
Well, I mean, I go back to the days of the Count Van der Straten, who ran extremely successful teams, not least of all in America, running in Can-Am. But now Mark has taken over that in conjunction with Thierry Boutsen. So Thierry himself, an extremely successful driver, Formula One, well, junior Formula One, and also in sports cars. Didn't he win Le Mans in a Peugeot?
I think he did.
I think so. Terry, if you didn't, take it that you did.
You're an honorary winner if you didn't actually win. I'm fairly sure Thierry Boutsen did win Le Mans. Out onto the main straight, that is Pietro Diliguanti, hoping to shake off the challenge from other folk. And they do not improve the time, but they stay on a 1:46.568 for the best time. That was a 1:46.8 at that point. So a very strong performance from the team, and I can tell you that they won in class, Thierry Boutsen.
Oh, okay.
He won in class. He didn't win overall.
Oh,
he was second in 1996 with Hans-Joachim Stuck and Bob
Watch this
Bollock.
car, Indy Donche, currently in 8th position, but personal best, sectors 1, sectors 2. Wait to see 8 becomes when he comes across the finish line.
Yep, stays the same.
Oh,
no
it's a
improvement.
disappointment.
They had to back out in the final sector.
That's a disappointment because he had made improvements in the first 2 sectors. As again, look at the 88 coming down, just having to, no, that's the 57 what we're talking about. Having to make way, and just, as he backed out of it,
He had to get. He had a lot of traffic there.
Yes.
Because the Ferrari was coming out of the pits.
So that's just.
But yeah, interesting coming back to the Thierry Boutsen thing. Yeah, he was second at Le Mans, won
So
his class. If you ask Juan Pablo Montoya, he didn't win overall. He won his class. But if you ask Juan Pablo Montoya, he said, "I have won Le Mans. I won my class. Job done."
Yes, I know, but that's maybe what you get with Juan Pablo.
It is indeed.
Likewise, a father who's got a son racing.
That's it. Well, I said to him...
Formula 3, I think, this year.
Indeed, I said to Juan Pablo Montoya earlier this year, are you going to come back and do the Triple Crown? Are you going to get the job done? He said, I've done it. What are you on about? I've already done it. Okay, fair enough.
He is whip crack smart.
He is indeed. So
4.5 minutes remaining while we've been gassing away.
There are personal bests for Sheldon van der Linde and for Jonathan Hoy. And I have to say, Sheldon van der Linde has done a 34.1. So that's a lap worth keeping an eye on. Sheldon van der Linde, who's down in 24th in the BMW, that might change any moment now.
And the 998 BMW Verhagen behind the wheel has got a personal best in Sector 2. So they're sufficiently close to the tail of Engelhardt that could be a switch in positions. If Engelhardt doesn't get a good lap in, and I think he was down the middle of it. Well, there, as the Porsche has just gone through, as we see the 32, Sheldon van der Linde now behind the wheel of that WRT. One might say the prime of the WRT field.
And also moving up, David Schumacher, cousin of Mick, nephew of Michael, son of Ralph, doing a fantastic job, moving up to 18th place then in the Winwood Mercedes with a 147.5, and also Maxime Soulet in the Compte Audi has moved up to 19th on a 147.619. Here's Sheldon van der Linde. They had a bit of a scruffy second sector, but this is going to be a big jump for the BMW, whatever happens. Oh, it isn't in the end, because the final sector...
1.8 seconds down. Oh, no,
and they're racing each other down to the first corner.
Yeah, that moving around like that isn't great.
This is going to be a point of contention for Sheldon van der Linde,
and that's the 63 car, and they really should know better. But the reason why they didn't want the BMW to get past was because that car currently, who's behind the wheel of the 63?
Sheldon van der Linde.
See, no, the Lamborghini.
Oh, sorry, it's Mirko Bortolotti.
Mirko Bortolotti doesn't want the BMW to get ahead, to have an influence. He's focusing and trying to get his lap in, and that was done to really say, hold on a second, Neil, don't think you're going to come past me.
I'd like to have a look at what actually happened in the Parabolica again. Let's have a look. This was going to be a very strong lap. Oh, look at that. That's, well, Bortolotti setting up his own lap.
Oh, and look at the wobble of the car. So that was Bortolotti preparing for a lap, and Neil Verhagen trying to conclude and also find a way around, which he hasn't been able to achieve. So Bortolotti, again, making his way through lots of traffic on the run-up into Ascari. The BMW all over the back of the Lamborghini. And what is there left with what we've got 2 minutes to go?
The continuing adventures of the Iron Lynx Lamborghini. They have had a pretty interesting time of it, the number 63 crew, since the beginning of free practice this morning. And unfortunately, they're really colouring themselves in disappointment. Again here, Sheldon van der Linde backing right out of it, letting the traffic go, because he's only got one more lap, really, to try and attack and see if they can move out of what is currently 24th position. Here is Bortolotti using the slipstream of the fellow Lamborghini to come across the line. And what has Mirko Bortolotti done? No improvement, a 148.8 compared to their best lap of a 148.0. They are a second and a half off the pace of the Trezor Attempto Audi at the top spot. We're going to get a silver car on the top spot here.
Well, look, they did the hard yards in the early part of the session, and no one's managed to get on terms with it. So a great job.
Lorenzo Patrese.
By Lorenzo Patrese.
That's incredible.
I think it's wonderful because a young man, not call him a young guy, a young man who has been brought up in the family of motor racing, but also horses, because the Patrese family are big into, I think, showing. Nevertheless, it's the four-wheel rather than the four-legged side of the family's sporting interest that we're talking about today.
Look at Lorenzo, he's keen. Have we done it? Have we done it? Was my lap good enough to be the fastest car on track? He's very keen, is Lorenzo Patrese.
Oh, it's lovely, it's a lovely story.
Right, Dean McDonald is on a flyer. 34.1 in the first sector, 37.4 in the second. There could still be an improvement for the number 5 McLaren.
The lead McLaren.
Yes, indeed.
Albeit down in 26th position, but there's a group of 3 of those McLarens all relatively close to one another. The differences in times are very, very small.
And they've got one more lap they can do as well. Here is Dean McDonald across the line. What can the Scotsman do across the line? And it's a 149.1 in the end. They had to bail out of the final sector, I believe. So now they've only got one more chance to crack it. 4, 3, 2, 1, and that is all she wrote. So now the checkered flag will come out. Anybody who's on a flying lap can do one. Anybody who's finishing one, that's it, you're done. And for Fabian Schiller, the treble 7 Mercedes will only be 4th at best. Alfred Renoir has just come across the line as well to finish off the run there. Alfred Renoir in the Hubert Porsche. 27th is the best that they can hope for. So the finish line is there among us. Gilles Magnus crosses in 13th. Frank Pereira crosses the line in 15th place in the K-Pax Lamborghini. That's a bit better than this morning as well for them. So they made an improvement. Whoa! Pushing hard, Dean McDonald, as we look at Nick Yellerly in the Rove BMW.
Yes. Just getting notifications that Sam Neary's not having a great day. He's been reported again for speeding, and he's already got a number of BWP points. So might be a tough day for the Brits.
This is the fastest non-Silver Arrows or 4-ringed Audi. The BMW in 6th position, but there are...
Just watching the way the car, it rides curbs through Ascari. I think that rides pretty good. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a quick lap, but it certainly, if you're going to use curbs, you want a car that uses it in a way which doesn't deflect it or make it look, or make it feel a real handful.
So Nick Yellerly coming out of the final turn. The BMW is not on personal bests, but they're just trying to maximize what they can out of this lap. And what is the final lap time for them? It is a 1:47.6, so 0.6 of a second off their best. But in a few seconds' time, I think Trezor Attempto Racing can breathe a sigh of relief. They're going to be the fastest car in this session. I don't see anybody on personal bests.
No, there's nothing coming on screen. There's a few personal bests in the final sector, but the first two sectors are not going to... The times are down on those sectors, so I think one could assume that the 99 Audi is going to be the quickest car in this 1.5-hour session. Great job by Lorenzo Petresi, and I don't want a wet qualifying. I don't want a wet race either.
No.
But if that is what we are going to be blessed with, then it'll be a great grid. But with a surprise, one might say, that there are two Audis potentially going to start the race from the front row of the grid.
Nick Yellerly throwing away the in-lap completely there at the Variante della Roggia as Maxi Gutz's car is wheeled back into the pits. 5th position for them. There is the 88 car. Raffaele Marcello getting them up to 3rd position after being fastest in free practice this morning. So the Mercedes car is still good. And in terms of the long game, they'll be very positive. They'll be very happy.
And if this was to be the grid, starting in the second row of the grid, not a problem. Not a problem.
Well, there is the car that currently sits at the midpoint. Sheldon van der Linde, what might have been for the WRT BMW? Had they not been impeded by Mirko Bortolotti, who only finished up 40th, I think we could have seen the WRT BMW significantly higher.
Now look at the sculpture work on the bonnet. Where is the motor?
It's hiding somewhere.
Spot the motor. Stick a pin in the motor.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the leading crew in pre-qualifying, the Trezor Attempto Racing Audi crew. It's a fabulous opportunity. And of course, we're going to get the interview with the 3 drivers in the crew after pre-qualifying.
Boys, it's been a fantastic start to the weekend. Alex just on his way to join us as well, the 3rd driver in the team. But, you know, you're showing you've got incredible pace and consistency already.
Yeah, we're in a good place at the moment. I'm feeling really good on the car. I think the balance is really good, and we are working to stay on the top.
Absolutely. Alex, you bring a lot of experience to the team, of course, as well. Can a silver car win this race?
Ooh, we'll see on Sunday. I mean, isn't it quite early to ask that question? And I think it's a bit too early. But I think, yeah, the pace is amazing. Lorenzo did a good job. Also, Pietro was really quick. So I think we tried to make it possible, I'd say.
Well, a pole would be nice as well. Do you think that's possible, Lorenzo?
It's hard to say now, you know. We are definitely aiming as a first thing to the silver class, and then, you know, whatever comes with the overall is well accepted. We are definitely aiming for a good result, but yeah, pole position, I mean, we'll see what we can do. But
for the Petresi name, that would be amazing, right?
Yeah, it would, but we still have a lot of work to do. It will definitely not be easy. Now we will get with the engineers, check everything, and let's see what we can do tomorrow, yeah.
Great day today. Well done, lads. Thank you.
Thank you.
17 years of age, Lorenzo Patrese, and he popped up with the fastest time in the session of pre-qualifying. Trezor Attempto Audi, the silver team, on the top spot. That's a big result. The Santa Luc Audi in second. Mercedes 3, 4, and 5 from the Rove BMW. The Trezor Orange 1 Audi. The Winward Mercedes is the leading gold car. And then we have the dynamic Hubert Porsche and the Rove BMW of Neil Verhagen in the top 10. Then in 11th place, it is the leading bronze machine, the AF Corsa Ferrari of Jeff Machiels, with the Audi and Porsche combination quite close in behind. The K-Pax Lamborghini of Frank Pereira, 15th position in Pro. And then despite the problems that put them out of the session, Valentino Rossi spinning the car, but the WRT BMW did finish 16th overall, so they didn't lose too much time in the end. Then the silver ComTu Audi of Finlay Hutchison, a pair of golds, David Schumacher's Mercedes and Maxime Soulet's Audi, and then the Grasser Lamborghini finishing up. There were some strong performances further down the field, as you can see. Porsche and Audi working their way forward. The McLaren of Charlie Fagg, Dean McDonald and Sam DeHaan, the leading McLaren 24th in the rankings, into the 30s. And we can see that the Garage 59 McLaren of Enrique Chavez there in front of the gold WRT BMW. The Parker Racing Porsche that brought out the second red flag there in 33rd. Adam Carroll in the bronze WRT BMW in the mix there. But look, there are the Ferraris. The AF Corsa 296s, 36th and 39th. That is not where either of the Pro Ferrari cars we're expecting to be in pre-qualifying. It could be a very long weekend at the office for the Maranello-based squad. Lamborghini have a trio of cars towards the tail end there, but there's a lot of interesting competition still to come in the weekend. We still have qualifying tomorrow morning and the race tomorrow afternoon. Wet conditions expected, so it could all change again.
Absolutely. What can you say about wet conditions at Monza is just guarantee yourself starting at as near to the front as you possibly can, because otherwise you will be driving in the worst pea soup, spray, fog, whatever. And this is a high-speed racetrack, so loads of rooster tails goes up in the air, and some parts it'll dissipate around the circuit, other bits it'll hang in the trees and then continue to fall. So it will be, if it is a wet day, it'll be a very hard race for the entire 55-car field. And it will change. A lot of people have, whatever their thoughts and plans are, principally for a dry day, they're going to have to make a reassessment, because it's not a circuit to toy with in wet weather conditions.
No, indeed. This place is not to be flirted with. And you can see, look, a very unique race circuit right in the heart of the city of Monza, right in the heart of the national park. And what a fabulous battle. So the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup, powered by AWS, saw a very interesting pre-qualifying session as drivers and teams started to push the envelope a little bit more than usual. Valentino Rossi, the first big scalp in the session, as he lost it at the final corner, the Variante Alboreto, bringing out the red flags and definitely putting a hamper in the number 46 BMW Crew's afternoon. When we got started again, it was very much about the pro cars trying to get up to the same sort of speed as their counterparts. It was a good run for the AF Corsa Ferrari in the bronze category, the 488 going significantly quicker than the 296s. Parker Porsche in trouble again, this time going off at Lesmo 1 rather than Lesmo 2, another red flag called. But the lap time that was produced earlier in the session by the 17-year-old Italian Lorenzo Patrese was fought for and battled with by the Mercedes cars, but they couldn't catch it. For the moment, the fastest car in the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup is a Silver Cup Porsche, a Silver Cup Audi, I should say. So it's going to be an interesting battle to see if anyone can catch them. The battle is going to be raging tomorrow when the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe cars continue to battle away. But for the moment, it's Audi, first and second, a silver and a pro.